We've all been there. You wake up, you have a concrete plan, a clear vision for the day. Maybe you even crush the first hour. You feel focused, centered, ready.
Ready for impact.
Exactly. And then the outside world breaches the perimeter. A single, carelessly worded text message just cuts right through your momentum.
Oh, it's the worst.
A comment online, designed to provoke, hits you with just the right disrespectful tone. Or maybe it's just a colleague's passive-aggressive remark that lodges itself in your mind.
And that's it.
That's it. In that one moment,
Yeah.
your entire day, the piece you worked so hard to build, is just completely thrown off course. Your chest tightens, your thoughts start racing defensively, and suddenly you are not working on your goals anymore.
No, you're stuck. You're stuck reacting to external noise, controlled entirely by this emotional aftermath. And you're setting yourself up for decisions you will absolutely regret later.
That isn't just a bad day. That is you, literally handing over the steering wheel of your life to whatever random negative thing happens to cross your path.
And that constant state of being triggered, that willingness to let external chaos dictate your internal calm, that is the core pain point that holds the vast majority of people. We can call them the 99% back.
Back from what?
From achieving any kind of sustained success, any kind of undeniable mental toughness. They confuse, volume for truth, and they mistake an emotional reaction for necessary action. They live in this perpetually defensive state.
Okay, so our source material today is deep dive into what we have to call a manual for self-mastery. It's not about soothing platitudes, is it?
Not at all. No gentle encouragement. It deals in the hard, non-negotiable truths and the discipline mechanisms that are necessary for total internal control. This is the knowledge that separates those who are constantly ruled by their chaotic environment from the few, the strong, who choose to lead themselves.
So that is the uncompromising mission of this deep dive. We're stripping away every single soft excuse, every notion that you need to feel ready to act. We're diving directly into the core mechanisms of genuine, unwavering mental toughness.
This is the wake-up call.
It is. It's designed to make you stop procrastinating, stop letting fear or insecurity drive your actions, and start implementing total self-mastery immediately. We're analyzing the playbook for how to stop letting those temporary, intense, and frankly often false emotions take over, and finally lead your life with quiet, undeniable strength.
Focused entirely on what actually moves you forward.
Exactly.
So we have to begin with the foundation. The central pivot point of this entire philosophy of control. The manual defines real power not in terms of external dominance, not in wealth or control over others, but purely internally.
And what is that definition?
The principle is this. Real power is when you feel everything but react to nothing.
Okay, let's unpack that immediately because that definition is crucial. It radically flips the script on what most people think emotional strength even is.
It does.
Most people believe strength means suppressing feeling, trying to be a robot who feels nothing. But that strategy is so dangerous, it just leads to burnout, to psychological debt later on.
Absolutely. This manual argues the complete opposite. It demands that you feel the full, immediate rush of emotion. When that trigger hits, that bad text, the disrespectful tone, the criticism, it causes a very real physiological response.
We're talking about a biological event here.
We're talking about the cortisol dump, the sympathetic nervous system kicking into high gear, the chest tightens, the thoughts start racing, that knot forms in your stomach. That is your amygdala hijacking the whole system. It's preparing you for fight or flight.
And for the 99%, as you call them, that's where the process stops.
That's where it terminates. They mistake that immediate, urgent emotional signal for a mandatory command. And they obey the impulse. They lash out, they defend, they retreat.
Which brings us to the first hard truth the manual presents.
Which is that emotions are not facts. They are data signals. They're intended to inform you about your environment and your internal state. But they must never, ever be obeyed blindly as a decision maker.
I mean, if you live your whole life obeying every flash of anger, every spike of fear, every demand of pride, you just stay perpetually stuck.
Stuck in cycles of overreaction, inconsistent behavior, and deep regret. The world, and particularly the online world, it rewards these quick, defensive, loud responses because that drives drama and engagement.
But if you want a life defined by clarity, by intention, by consistency, you have to treat your feelings as temporary information.
Not as the final law of the land. The problem isn't the feeling. The problem is the automatic translation of that feeling into immediate external action. If you feel anger, but you maintain silence, you win. If you feel insecurity, but you keep working on your task,
You win.
you win. This leads us straight to the analysis of the critical split second. This
Uh,
is synthesized across the guy's chapters, and it's this tiny, nearly invisible space between the emotion rising and the action being taken.
a space most people don't even know exists.
They ignore it entirely. But the strong person, they dedicate their entire mental focus to training themselves to use it, to insert a deliberate, conscious pause.
But isn't that unrealistic? Telling someone who has just received a truly hurtful, targeted text, the kind that makes the blood rush to your head, to just sit with the tension, that sounds like asking them to be superhuman.
Well, it feels that way at first, but the manual addresses the difficulty by providing a clear, three-step internal script. It's about making the process mechanical rather than purely emotional.
Okay, so what's step one?
First, you must physically anchor yourself. Literally, feel your feet on the floor. Take one deep, deliberate breath. This is your first conscious act of defiance against the amygdala's hijack. It's a circuit breaker.
Okay, so you ground yourself physically, then what?
Second, you have to label the emotion without judgment. You say to yourself, I am observing anger, or I am feeling defensiveness. This creates crucial intellectual distance.
You're separating yourself from the feeling.
Through making the statement, I am the one watching the feeling unfold, therefore I am not the feeling.
And that distinction, identifying yourself as the observer, not the subject of the emotion, that's what enables the third step.
Exactly. The third step is applying the cognitive filter. This is the discipline hack. Instead of immediately jumping to that emotional question, how should I respond to defend myself, for now, you introduce a mandatory logical filter.
A question you ask yourself in that pause.
Two questions, really. First, does this action align with my values 5 minutes from now or 5 years from now? And more specifically, more immediately, do I even need to respond? Is this worth sacrificing the peace I have already created today?
I really appreciate that framing. Because when someone is offensive, the weak mind operates under this urgent, false premise that I must answer to prove I'm right or to prove I'm worthy.
Yes.
But the disciplined mind cuts through that noise and says, wait, that person has already decided who they think I am. Is changing their mind worth the emotional cost, the time, and the energy that I could be spending on my actual mission?
And this is where the power shifts. Reacting out of pure emotion is essentially handing over your power. You're giving external factors, the person, the comment, the traffic, complete control over your internal state. Your mood is now dictated by them.
So by choosing not to react, by choosing that calculated silence, you keep that power.
You keep it fully focused on your own path, on your goals.
Yeah.
You maintain internal sovereignty.
But how do you actively train this muscle in daily life? It's easy for us to sit here and talk about pausing, but when the heat is on, that pause it evaporates.
It requires consistent practice. You have to start with low stakes. Treat it like resistance training. The manual suggests beginning with routine, daily frustrations.
Okay.
The slow person in line at the coffee shop, the disrespectful driver who cuts you off, the irritating buzzing notification on your phone. These are your training weights.
You don't start with the big emotional battles.
You'd fail. You start small. And the practice is very specific. When you feel that tension rise, you must commit to not running. Don't immediately grab your phone and start scrolling. Don't vent to the first person you see. Don't try to suppress the feeling.
So you just feel it.
You just feel the tension, the actual physiological tightening in your chest or your stomach, and you sit with it fully, you observe it, and you breathe through it for 60 seconds.
That 60 seconds is the training ground. That's the rep. It's allowing that initial acute physiological spike to subside just enough for the rational brain, the prefrontal cortex, to come back online.
Right. And only after you have sat with the feeling and it has begun to soften, only then do you choose your next move with intention. The goal is to prove to your own nervous system that intense feelings, anger, disappointment, anxiety, are not life-threatening.
They're just temporary visitors.
Temporary visitors that will pass, provided you don't feed them with panic or reaction.
The ultimate outcome of this consistent practice, then, is breaking that self-destructive loop where every single emotion leads to an automatic action, and every one of those rash actions leads directly to subsequent regret.
When you break that loop, you step into a completely different kind of life. You become calm under pressure. You become capable of walking away from conflict with dignity. You start valuing long-term peace over the momentary satisfaction of being right or getting the last word.
Strength isn't being loud or quick to anger.
Strength is knowing exactly how you feel, feeling it fully, and still choosing not to lose yourself in it. This internal control, It leads to better decisions, stronger relationships, and a confidence that is so deep-rooted because it comes from internal mastery, not from external validation.
Okay, so we've successfully contained the internal fire by mastering that critical split second. But what about the noise outside the wall? The manual addresses this huge drain of dealing with constant external criticism and misperception.
Yes, moving from managing internal impulses to setting external boundaries, the guide hits another painful truth that applies directly to our listener, the learner persona.
And what's that?
The immense energy sink involved in trying to correct a misperception. This is what Chapter 2 calls the cost of chasing understanding. It dives into how incredibly hard it is to just let people believe something wrong about you.
It is genuinely agonizing. I mean, we are socially wired to seek validation, to be seen clearly, and to be understood accurately. It feels like a core human need.
It does. When someone twists our words or judges our actions unfairly or simply gets our intentions completely wrong, the immediate overwhelming pull is to stop everything, to jump in, explain ourselves in minute detail, and prove that our intentions were pure.
It feels like an urgent, necessary debt that has to be paid right now.
But the manual delivers a harsh, yet liberating, uncomfortable reality. Not everyone deserves your explanation. Not everyone deserves your time or your emotional energy.
That's a critical distinction, especially for people pleasers or those of us who are really focused on competence and being seen as competent.
It is, because often people aren't misunderstanding you due to simple ignorance. They are deliberately committed to a wrong version of you because it serves their internal narrative.
Say more about that. Why would someone be committed to a wrong version of you?
That is the essential psychological insight here. Some individuals find comfort in that wrong version because it justifies their envy, it protects their own fragile ego, or it simply makes them feel right about their existing assumptions about the world or about you.
So if a person is willfully committed to misunderstanding you,
Then no amount of facts, no amount of evidence, no amount of emotional honesty will ever change their mind. Trying to persuade a closed mind is the ultimate non-recoupable energy drain. It's choosing to turn your peace into a perpetual conflict.
you're describing a low-yield side quest in a video game. It feels important in the moment, but it doesn't advance your main mission at all, and it just drains your health bar.
Perfectly put. So, the discipline hack here becomes a ruthless, cold filter that you have to apply to the situation. Before you engage, before you type that reply, you must ask yourself, will their opinion of me affect my growth, my core values, my peace, or my future income?
And you have to be honest with the answer.
Brutally honest. If the answer is clearly and unequivocally no, meaning this person is not a client, not a direct supervisor, not a loved one whose relationship is foundational to your life, then walking away without defending yourself is not weakness.
It's a profound display of sovereignty.
It is. You are protecting your energy, which, as the manual constantly reminds us, is the highest value currency you have in the pursuit of self-mastery.
The time you spend replaying those conversations in your head, drafting defensive emails, worrying about cynical remarks, or trying to convince a critic.
That is energy stolen directly from your actual goals, from your healing process, from the construction of your future. You stop living in response to other people's opinions, and you start living with internal integrity, where your own knowledge of your character is sufficient.
You don't need their validation to know your truth.
This brings us to the power of calculated silence, which is covered in chapters 4 and 8. We often feel that if we don't speak up, we are admitting defeat or admitting guilt.
Right. Silence feels like surrender.
But the manual frames silence not as an avoidance tactic, but as a strategic defense mechanism. It's a sign of control. When we feel misunderstood, we rush to fill the void with words, which almost always results in over-explaining.
And saying things you didn't mean just out of a sense of urgency.
Exactly. You react from a place of fear rather than a place of fact. Silence, on the other hand, provides space. And space is the environment where clarity thrives.
By choosing silence, you're slowing the game down. You're giving yourself long enough to see the actual dynamics at play.
And you can ask yourself, are they listening to understand or are they just listening to judge? If they're only listening to argue, or if their mind is already made up, then your voice is not just useless. It is actively damaging your own peace by feeding a useless conflict.
So the strength of this approach lies in setting a kind of internal boundary.
It's a declaration. I'm not going to spend my life trying to achieve understanding from people who don't value understanding in the first place. And the hard truth is undeniable. People will talk and they will judge whether you defend yourself or not.
They'll create their narratives regardless.
They will. So stop making their gossip or their opinions your job. the stillness that results from not needing to be right in everyone's eyes. That is foundational strength. It's a quiet presence that compels respect far more effectively than any loud defense ever could.
We also have to address the exhausting effort people expend trying to manage how others treat them. This is what the manual calls stopping the chase for external control in Chapter 7.
Yes, the manual provides an absolute, inviolable rule here. You cannot, under any circumstances, force anyone to act right or speak right. People treat you based on their level of awareness, their internal insecurities, and their current emotional state, not based on the level of effort you put into being respectable.
Trying to control their behavior is like trying to control the weather. It's chaos.
And yet, we constantly tie our entire emotional state to their external behavior. If your peace, your self-worth, or your sense of validation depends on how a single person speaks to you, or includes you, or supports you, you've effectively handed over the controls to your life to them.
A single glance, a wrong tone, an unreturned phone call, and your whole day is ruined.
You become anxious and perpetually reactive because you are constantly monitoring the external environment, desperately trying to fix or earn basic respect.
So the manual demands a shift to what it calls self-respect in action.
Which means shifting your energy away from changing them and towards choosing you. You stop trying to fix people who do not want to change. You walk away from confusion. You step back from draining relationships.
The manual is uncompromising here. It basically says you shouldn't have to earn basic respect.
Exactly. If someone's behavior forces you to beg or to plead or to perpetually adjust your own light just so they can see you, that is not a challenge you need to win. That is a serious, fundamental red flag that dictates your need for distance.
So reclaiming your power means living in a way that doesn't depend on external affirmation. It means halting the self-sacrificing behavior of trying to uplift people who refuse to lift themselves.
We're talking about believing people the first time they show you who they are, and then you adjust your boundaries and your proximity. You don't escalate your efforts to prove your worth.
You shift your energy from changing their attitude to protecting your own inner world.
Because that's the only world you actually control. It is the moment you stop holding on to that faint, dangerous hope that they will suddenly wake up and see your worth. If they don't see it now, it is not your job to paint it for them.
And that choice, the choice to protect your energy and walk in silence when necessary, that's genuine freedom.
It is. It allows you to conserve the energy you need for the next two critical sections: internal confrontation and total responsibility. Okay, so we now shift from dealing with external noise to confronting the deepest internal chaos, specifically that natural human tendency to run from any form of emotional discomfort.
The avoidance instinct.
Precisely. Chapter 3 addresses this with the anti-escape strategy. The moment that internal tension rises, the tightness in the stomach, the restlessness, the anxiety about a future deadline, most people reflexively reach for an immediate escape valve.
They grab the phone, food, mindless habits, busy work.
Any form of external noise to avoid that feeling.
And this is where the manual becomes truly ruthless. It states clearly that if you want to grow stronger, you have to stop escaping discomfort and start actively learning from it.
It says running from tension is a guarantee that you will stay permanently on the emotional surface, you'll be perpetually patching things up, but you'll never address the real underlying issue.
And so the tension will just return.
Stronger and more demanding every single time. This practice redefines tension as teacher. Tension is not the enemy. It is simply a signal that something inside you needs attention, not avoidance or escape.
So when you choose to sit with tension, you're not giving into it.
No, you are observing it. You're looking at it without the frantic, immediate pressure to fix it or make it disappear. That uncomfortable, anxious moment where most people check out into distraction is exactly the moment you need to check in and anchor your focus.
Discomfort, therefore, is the genuine growth zone.
It teaches you more valuable truths than comfort ever will, primarily by exposing your automatic avoidance patterns, your coping mechanisms, and the limits of your own patience.
So the manual's discipline hack here is mastering the art of learning to just sit with it, to allow the feeling to exist without moving a muscle to change it.
Yes. When an uncomfortable thought or pressing anxiety hits, you pause. You don't rush to change the feeling or grab a distraction. The practice is surprisingly physical and intensely disciplined.
How so?
When you feel that anxious energy rise, you must intentionally locate it in your body. You ask yourself, where is this tension sitting? Is it in my stomach, my jaw, my shoulders? You just notice it.
Without judgment.
You don't label it as bad. You don't try to solve the external problem it references. You just feel it. You sit in the full space of the discomfort and you breathe through it until the wave peaks and begins to subside. This process builds genuine, visceral emotional strength.
The power here is recognizing that if you can sit with what makes you deeply uncomfortable, grief, fear, anxiety, uncertainty, without running or reacting or shutting down, you are reclaiming your power from chaos.
You're learning to respond with intention instead of escaping with unconscious habit. This practice is absolutely foundational to mental toughness.
And we have to emphasize the real cost of avoidance.
We do. The manual notes that most of the self-created trouble in people's lives comes directly from what they do to avoid what they feel. The panicked, regretful decisions, the impulsive purchases, the emotional lashing out, the quick quits,
All to avoid a feeling.
all to avoid a feeling. When you simply allow the tension to exist, the guide notes something profound. It often doesn't last nearly as long as you think it will. It's the resistance to the feeling, the frantic struggle against reality that magnifies the pain.
You learn through this discipline that your only job, sometimes, is just to feel the hard thing and let it pass through you, trusting that you are structurally and emotionally bigger than your stress and your momentary fears.
And when you stop fearing hard emotions because you've trained yourself to sit through them, you stop needing everything to feel perfect all the time. You become the kind of person who maintains stillness and precision even under immense pressure.
That kind of quiet resolve is the hallmark of real mastery.
Now let's pivot to the internal enemy that often speaks loudest in those moments of discomfort, especially when a lack of external validation makes us feel insecure. Pride.
Pride.
Chapter 5 details catching the voice of pride. It's this sneaky, fast, highly intelligent mechanism that steps forward to speak on your behalf, almost always when you feel judged, disrespected, or you feel your image is threatened.
Pride is that instant defensive reaction when your worth is challenged. The manual emphasizes that pride speaks only to defend your image, not to solve the actual conflict or achieve long-term peace.
Pride has a demanding, loud voice. It wants to interrupt. It wants to over-justify, to prove, to ensure you never look weak or wrong or uncertain. And crucially, when pride is leading the conversation, it has zero interest in truth, resolution, or understanding.
It cares only about winning the moment and maintaining status.
That is the ultimate trap for the learner. Reacting based on pride feels incredibly satisfying for about 2 seconds. You land the perfect comeback, you feel temporarily superior, but it leads to weeks of regret, strained relationships, and it keeps you perpetually stuck in conflict loops that go nowhere.
Pride is the engine behind virtually every argument that spirals out of control.
It's what makes you over-justify a small mistake or send 5 paragraphs when 2 sentences would have been enough.
Therefore, the discipline hack here is rigorous. You have to train yourself to notice the physiological and psychological cues of pride rising.
Yes. It's that fast thought, the sudden rush of heat, the tightening in your chest that urges you to say something right now so you don't look bad or feel the sting of rejection.
And when you notice this physiological readiness to fight,
You must pause, and you apply the clarifying filter. Is this action because it's true, necessary, and helpful for my future, or is it just my pride trying to win a battle that doesn't matter?
that's a powerful question.
And if the answer is clearly pride, you have a choice. You can allow pride to speak and feed the conflict, thereby sacrificing your long-term peace. Or you can step back, hold your ground in strategic silence, and choose the bigger, harder win.
Which is long-term ego deflation in favor of self-mastery.
Exactly. This is where the manual's advice becomes truly empowering because it completely redefines confidence.
How so?
Real confidence doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to interrupt or prove anything to anyone. That kind of strength is found in holding your silence and valuing the bigger picture and accepting the discomfort of being misunderstood for a short period of time.
You do not have to defend every detail of your life.
When you catch your pride before it speaks, you achieve a deeper level of growth. When you choose peace over proving yourself right, you win the game of self-mastery. This is the mechanism for staying in absolute control of your mind, your emotions, and your future by recognizing pride's subtle voice and refusing to grant it the microphone.
So bringing all these elements together, emotional discipline, setting boundaries, confronting internal discomfort, the final section of this manual is really about total ownership. It's synthesized in Chapter 9's concept of holding your energy, the highest value currency.
Yes, the world, especially the modern world, is constantly pulling at your focus with 1,000 deadlines, conflicts, urgent demands. If you are not disciplined, you will give yourself away piece by piece until nothing of substance or clarity is left for your core mission.
It's a powerful framing of mental bandwidth. Society often teaches that giving everything, saying yes to every demand, and always prioritizing others is a sign of love or commitment.
But the manual correctly identifies this as simple burnout and emotional exhaustion dressed up as kindness. We have to utilize what it calls an awareness check to identify our energy drains.
What does that look like in practice?
You have to ask yourself, what conversations leave you feeling heavy, scattered, or resentful? What scrolling or consumption habits cause your mind to spiral into comparison or anxiety? These feelings are signs. They're signs that you have repeatedly failed to maintain your boundaries and have let too much external noise and obligation into your system.
So your energy is your non-negotiable responsibility.
Absolutely. You must be deeply aware of your own limits. And critically, the discipline hack is the realization that you are fundamentally allowed to be still. You are allowed to say no without subsequent guilt. You are allowed to consistently choose peace over urgency.
The weak version of you shows up tired, scattered, and overwhelmed.
Making bad decisions and genuinely helping no one effectively. The strong version of you holds back, pulls inward, maintains reserves, and gives from a place of strength, clarity, and genuine intentional choice, not from desperate obligation.
This circles back to the strength of self-respect.
It does. Real, sustainable commitment to others starts with self-respect. It's the foundational belief that I can care deeply about others and my obligations without losing myself, my focus, or my peace in the process.
We need to understand that when your mind is tired and scattered,
The quality of your decisions automatically drops. Your discipline weakens dramatically. By relentlessly protecting your focus and your energy, you ensure that the decisions you make are clear, powerful, and aligned with your highest values, rather than just being panic reactions to the loudest, most recent demand.
this clarity leads us to the ultimate challenge presented in Chapter 10, leading yourself, the daily choice.
Yes, every single morning, your life begins with a fundamental question. Who will lead your life today? You and your values, or your temporary, fleeting emotions? This is the final implication of self-mastery.
The manual makes an undeniable case about what it calls the flaw of feelings.
It does. Emotions are inherently temporary, and they are unreliable narrators of reality. They often actively lie to you. Following them leads directly to quitting the things you deeply want, to damaging relationships through impulsive reactions, and to constantly changing direction every time something feels uncomfortable or difficult.
The world is full of brilliant, motivated people who have handed the steering wheel of their lives to whatever feeling happens to be strongest that day.
Resulting in a life of maximum potential, but minimum output.
So the required shift is a radical maturity shift.
Leading yourself means accepting total responsibility. It means you make yourself do what needs to be done even when you absolutely don't feel like it. You don't wait for motivation, you don't wait for inspiration, you don't wait for everything to feel perfectly aligned to act.
You keep your internal standards high, focused on execution, even when your emotions are trying to drag them low toward comfort and immediate gratification.
And this isn't about being cold or uncaring. This is about being driven by your core values and a non-negotiable long-term vision.
So the true source of growth is measured by the actions you take, despite how you feel.
Exactly. Showing up tired, yet still putting in the focused work. Feeling deeply offended, yet still choosing to respond with calibrated calm. Feeling overwhelmed by the sheer size of a project, yet taking one small, intentional step forward anyway.
This is what builds deep, quiet, unshakable confidence.
Your emotions will always offer the easy shortcut: react now, quit now, blame others. But leadership says pause, breathe, think, and choose based on the commitment to your long-term vision, regardless of the emotional price tag.
And when you lead yourself in this manner, you fundamentally stop being so easily influenced by external factors. You stop being shaken by the moods of others. You cease being automatically pulled into every passing emotional storm.
You gain a stability, a quiet, deep confidence that allows you to feel everything intensely, the anger, the disappointment, the fear, but still process it and make wise, value-driven decisions that align with your deepest foundational commitments.
You become the master of your inner world.
And that control, once it's established, cannot be shaken by a text message, a careless comment, or even a sudden crisis. The transformation offered by internalizing this manual is, well, it's profound. It moves you from being a slave to tension, a debtor to every opinion, and a follower of every emotional wave, to a person who is grounded, disciplined, and unshakably in control.
You move into the space of the quiet leader.
The person known for their stillness and their steadiness under pressure. You learn, above all, that the strongest people are those who feel every emotion, often intensely, but who still make wise decisions. They never let the emotion of the moment destroy the foundation of discipline they've spent years building.
So what does this all mean for you right now as you finish listening? The choice is immediate and it's non-negotiable. Every single day, every single hour is a chance to practice this self-leadership.
You do not need to control everything around you.
No, you need to dedicate every fiber of your being to building unbreakable strength within you. Stop waiting for motivation to arrive. Stop waiting to feel good or clear or energized before you act. Your feelings are entirely irrelevant to the task at hand.
Your peace, your future, and your ultimate success depend entirely on the very next decision you make.
Start now, right now, by making one intentional decision that completely defies your current emotion. If you feel that familiar, anxious urge to check your phone or find a distraction because of internal tension, choose instead to sit still for 60 seconds and just breathe through it. If your pride demands you fire off that defensive message or justification, choose silence and delete the draft. If you feel overwhelmed by your massive to-do list, choose one single focused action that moves you toward your values and execute it perfectly. That one conscious choice, that moment of self-leadership, is the difference between a life led by chaotic circumstance and a life led entirely by you.